Hello everyone, we made it to Belize. We got in really late last night, so I wasn't able to vlog at all, but we just had breakfast, so now we're ready to go venture out. I wanted to film a quick introduction for this video though, because in this vlog, I'm gonna be showing you a bunch of different sites from Belize and northern Guatemala, and we're gonna talk about ancient Mayan magic. We're gonna explore some ruins. We're gonna explore some plant spirits. If you have just stumbled into this video and you have no idea who I am, if you are not a spiritual, witchy, occult-like person, you should probably click off, because on this channel I do explore the occult, esotericism, witchcraft, shamanism, paganism, spirituality, all of those types of things. So though this is a travel vlog, it's going to be filmed from the perspective of a very witchy spiritual person. Now that that's out of the way, we got in late last night. Let me just catch you up to speed before I go off and film a bunch of other random things for the day. First of all, so many travel issues. I should not have traveled during Mercury retrograde. I knew it was going to be like this, but we had no choice. It was the only time that really worked for our schedules to travel, so it is what it is. I'll show you some footage of this morning when we were walking down. There's this little sidewalk, boardwalk type thing with all these different cabanas. I don't know if they're called cabanas or bungalows. I think ours is called a bungalow, but anyways, I'll show you the footage from that because it's so beautiful here. You can hear all of the birds. It's definitely rainforest. We finally hit the jungle. So we are officially in San Ignacio, Belize. We took a 6-hour flight from Seattle to Belize City, and then we rented a car and drove about 2 hours west to San Ignacio. So our travel plans kind of got messed up, and I did not realize that we could not take our rental car across the border to Guatemala, because our plan was to drive all over the country of Belize and then also to drive across the border and explore all of northeastern Guatemala. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So we spent all of last night and all of this morning completely reworking our itinerary and trying to figure out what we could do. There's all these shuttle services, but then we'd have to leave our rental car somewhere random. It just was a whole sketchy mess, and it's a long story, but long story short, we decided that we're staying in Belize mainly, and then we're just gonna take day trips, like day tours that are actually guided by someone else across the border into Guatemala. So this vlog is mainly going to be Belize, but we will have at least one day, I'm not sure if it's gonna be multiple days yet, going into Guatemala, especially to see Tikal, because that is the biggest ancient Mayan city, period. And I am so excited to see it. It's just gorgeous. I can't wait to show you all. So really, we were originally going to spend 10 days in Belize, 5 days in Guatemala, but now I think we're going to spend like 13 days in Belize and then just do maybe 2 day trips into northern Guatemala. So kind of a bummer. I'll have to fly back to Guatemala on a different trip and explore all of Guatemala's sites, but at least we'll get to see Tikal. That was the one we really wanted to see in Guatemala, and that's the one that matters the most. So anyways, because of all of those itinerary changes, we're checking out of this place today. We only stayed one night because we have to check into a different hotel now for the next 3 days. Anyways, it's a whole mess. It's figured out now. It's gonna be fine. It's very hot and humid, so you're also gonna see like my natural curly bird nesty hair in this vlog, and it is what it is. Let's go explore San Ignacio together today. That is on our agenda currently, and then tomorrow is epic Tikal. One thing we really love about San Ignacio is that it's not super touristy at all. Everyone always goes to San Pedro in Belize, and no offense, but it seems like San Pedro was kind of built for tourists, and that's not necessarily the vibe we were going for. But here in San Ignacio, it's the perfect blend of locals, Belize culture, tourist activities. It kind of has a little bit of everything, but with more of like a local flavor. After spending the day in San Ignacio, we drove about 30 minutes out of town and into the jungle, which was basically where our next hotel was. It was in the middle of a jungle. Oh, and by the way, the room was gorgeous. I can't believe it. But anyways, so many different species of birds, lizards, butterflies. I caught video of an iguana stealing a piece of papaya. Thought that was adorable. And staying out in the middle of the jungle, oh, the jungle sounds were so surreal. He's a hungry boy. It is 5:30 in the morning. I just finished braiding my hair for the day. Woke up at 4:30. We're gonna be on our way back to San Ignacio because we're in a new place right now. But we have to meet up with our tour guide, and then we are going to have a 10-hour excursion across the Guatemala border to Tikal, which is the largest Mayan city that exists. And it is theorized that it is also the oldest Mayan city that ever exists. It's huge. I cannot wait. Seeing Tikal, it is the #1 thing that my partner and I wanted to do on this trip. The day has finally come to see Tikal, so I'm very, very excited. So we made our way back to San Ignacio, Belize, which is basically where our travel guide was gonna pick us up. And it was 6 a.m., it was quiet, nobody was on the street. And I wanted to talk about Belize and Guatemala for a second, because even though it is amazing food, amazing culture, great people, just gorgeous in general, these two countries are still considered developing countries. They still have many, many struggles and many challenges, and a lot of people were really severely affected by COVID. We talked to many people that had awful COVID stories about what it was like when the pandemic hit. So I think it's really important not to forget that. Our travel guide let us know that there are 22 different Mayan languages spoken in the lowlands. This is where we are for Tikal National Park. This is considered the lowlands of Guatemala. It's kind of in the North Guatemala area if you look at it on a map. It is theorized that this Mayan language, all the 22 Mayan languages, come from a mother language. And honestly, it's theorized that there may even be more than 22 different dialects. Also, it is estimated that about 43% of Guatemalans are Mayan descendants, which I thought was really, really incredible. But we were finally on our way to Tikal. But first we stopped at a little gift shop. Our tour guide wanted to give us a whole game plan of how we were going to tackle Tikal.
They found more than 3,000 structures here in Tikal, like temples, the pyramids. We call temples all these ones here, what you see there, temples. And the palaces are the long structures like this ones here that you see. Has many rooms in there, all these ones. So we are going to start. This is the entrance. Somewhere here. 10% of Tikal is what has been restored and excavated. Rest, the 90% still under the rainforest. So what we are going to see, friends, is this one here, this group. This is the largest group that has been restored and excavated in Tikal. This temple over here is allowed to climb up. This section here still is buried all the way around. You will see once you will get on top. Are you okay to climb up? Yeah. You will see the jungle, the vast of the jungle. When you get on top of Temple 4 or on top of these ones, you feel it how the Mayans, how advanced, how great was the culture back then.
So we finally made it to Tikal National Park, and when I say I felt the energy, I truly cannot fully explain it. Our tour guide let us know that the temples were considered mountains to the gods, and in the temples, a lot of offerings were placed there. They actually found crypts of kings, and inside one of the crypts, they found human remains, of course, of the king, but also surrounding the king, there was jade. Jade was very, very sacred to the Mayans. Jade was considered the most valuable crystal, and in the tomb with jade, there were also seashells. There were seashells that were buried with the skeleton, because I did not know this, but the Mayans actually traded seashells with others in the Caribbean. You'll also notice as you look at the temples that there are 9 platforms. The number 9 was very, very sacred to the Maya. So for those that watched my Greece vlog, you know that when I was in Acropolis, oh gosh, it's so bright. Sorry, I'm gonna have to keep my sunglasses on for this conversation. When I was in Acropolis in Greece, I had mentioned in that travel vlog that I had a really hard time connecting to the energy there. It just didn't feel... Well, I talked about it in that vlog. You can definitely go watch it if you want to catch up. But when I was in the UK visiting Stonehenge, that was one of those places where I really felt the energy deeply. I really, really deeply connected to Stonehenge. And this is another one of those places where I can feel it. I can feel the energy here. So it's very different than Acropolis in Greece, at least in my experience. But yeah, sitting here next to some Mayan ruins, looking up at my partner right now standing on top of a temple is quite surreal. We finally made our way up to the very top of Temple 4, the largest temple, and walking around this temple, you can see just with the view, you can see just how far away all of those other temples are, and it really puts into perspective how large this city is. This entire Tikal National Park is huge. We also saw so many animals, a lot of different types of birds. We saw toucans in the trees, so here is a toucan. Toucans to the Maya represented flight into the spirit world, and these birds that we saw specifically are collared aracari, but we did also see the more well-known keel-billed toucans as well. But there were so many different monkeys swinging from trees. We saw spider monkeys, there were howler monkeys. It was really fun to watch. There was actually a baby and the mom swinging around from tree to tree. I'm so glad I got a little bit of footage from that. And you know, I might end this trip with a toucan tattoo. I haven't decided yet, but that may happen.
Based on what we could see that the cave gives us, and the cave talks to us, you know, she is alive, she's a beautiful woman, she's alive and kicking, she's still growing, and she gives us her story. And she gives us her story using stalactites and stalagmites. Stalactites come from the ceiling and point downwards, kind of like an arrow pointing at us, and stalagmites grow upwards like mushrooms. And when I say she speaks to us, is like if we sometimes, for whatever reasons, we end up having broken pieces of stalactites, or what we would refer to as speleothems, you could actually take them. You could get a lot of information from them. One, you could get the growth rings to see more or less how old they are or how long they have been around. And two, you could actually also see how much rainfall you had on a given time or during a different period. So the cave system then tells us, or it teaches us, that the river, for some reason or the other, was here second. That ledge, on the entire ledge up top, there is a total of 4 human or 4 complete skeletal remains, and those 4 skeletal remains are actually accompanied by a total of 62 different pieces of different ceramic and fragments there, right?
Wow.
Also has been discovered up there a couple pieces of obsidian and jade. The Barton Creek Cave was being used by the Maya somewhere circa 680 to 780 AD. Not for very much longer than that. So it is believed that the Maya came in here for a total of about 100 years only. They would come in to leave rituals, to leave offerings to their gods, giving gratitude or asking for something, right?
I can see the skull way better now.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. You got it on your screen also, Albert. You could actually make it out now. You could see the eyes, the nose, sockets, everything there. Yeah. Can you see it?
How many human remains did you say?
In total for the whole cave system, 32. Up there, there's 4.
32, okay. question. I don't really have a tripod with me, so I kind of have to do this strategically. You should see this whole setup I have right now just to get the camera stable so I can talk to it for a second. So this is the second time that I'm filming this little segment, and the first time I filmed it in a different hotel. This vlog is going to be all over the place, but the lighting was really bad, and honestly I had a whole stream of consciousness for probably about 20 minutes because there's a lot I want to say. At this point we are a little over halfway into our trip, and I know I haven't showed you all the footage from our trip yet, but I have learned so much about the ancient Mayans, so much more than I could read in books. Actually visiting these sites and talking to people, there's just no replacement for that. And not just the ancient Mayans, but I've learned a lot about local culture, just Belize and Guatemala in general, and there's so many things that I want to express in this video, and I just don't have the time because I cannot make this video 3 hours long. Nobody will watch this video if it's 3 hours long, so I have to keep it short and sweet because I know everyone's attention spans really struggle when there's a 20-minute long stream of consciousness. So second time filming this, I'm gonna try to condense it down. I first want to talk about the Mayans just in general, so I'm gonna have a timestamp here talking about the Mayans, and then the second thing I want to talk about is the spiritual experience that I had in the caves. The first time I recorded this, it was right after getting out of the caves, and I was really, really raw and emotional. So I'm a little bit more in my logical brain today because I've had time to process, but that first recording was just like pure emotion. So I personally don't think that the Mayans are talked about enough. I think they're so fascinating. Everyone's always talking about the ancient Egyptians and how intelligent they were. And don't get me wrong, I am obsessed with ancient Egypt. I know a lot of us in the community really are, especially in the witchcraft community. I find that a lot of us are really obsessed with ancient Egypt, but it's kind of like the Mayans get forgotten. And I don't know if you remember around 2012 when everybody thought the world was ending because the Mayan calendar was ending December of 2012. And so everywhere, all over the world, everyone was freaking out because we thought that that meant the end of the world. That is how powerful the ancient Mayans were with their calendar systems. Some people think that the Mayans only had 2 calendars, but they actually had many, many different calendars. They were such intelligent people, and they were obsessed with understanding the cosmos and what was happening above them. And I feel like the Mayans get a really bad reputation for being really brutal with their sacrifices. And don't get me wrong, some of the stuff was brutal by today's standards, but you also have to remember that that was just a part of their culture back then. And in fact, if you look at the Aztecs versus the Mayans, the Aztecs were way more brutal than the Mayans were when it comes to sacrifice. So a lot of these cultures and tribes and communities during that time period, this was just a normal thing that you would offer to your gods. And you also have to remember that the Mayans were going through, towards the end of their civilization, they were going through a massive drought and people were dying. They were desperate. And so when they were sacrificing or doing these sacrifices to their gods, they were trying to save their people. It was an honor to be sacrificed. You sacrificing yourself for the good of your clan meant that you could go straight up to the gods and not have to go through the 9 levels of hell. And as the drought continued on and people were starving, people were dying, it was overpopulated, they became even more desperate and they tried different kinds of sacrifices. They would sacrifice men, women, children. And yeah, a lot of it can be seen as brutal, but their whole civilization was dying. And that's how they thought that they could potentially save their people. So I just wanted to shed some light on that. I think the Mayans are really interesting just because of how intelligent they were, especially with their calendar systems and working with the planets. They really worked deeply with the sun, the moon, and Venus. And so I've kind of been working with the sun, the moon, and Venus myself throughout the course of this trip. That's a whole nother thing I was gonna go on a rant about, is working with the planets and everything, but trying to keep this concise. Actually, you know what? I know I'm gonna get questions about it. So here's what I've been doing for my planetary magic. So if any of you are familiar with Gustav Holst, he is was a composer. Google here to the rescue. He created the planets, and it is a 7-movement orchestral suite by Gustav Holst, who is an English composer. It was written between 1914 and 1917, and each movement instrument of that orchestra is named after a particular planet with the associations in mind. So he has a song dedicated to Saturn, to Mars, Jupiter, Venus, etc. So I have been listening to Venus by Gustav, and I highly recommend listening to these pieces because they're just beautiful. I think Saturn and Venus is probably my favorite ones right now. But anyways, because the ancient Mayans really were obsessed with the sun, moon, and Venus, I've been really trying to work with these in different ways. So for example, I'll listen to Gustav's piece, Venus, while I'm doing a meditation. So I will visualize the colors associated with Venus. So it's usually a green color, like an emerald green. Sometimes people will visualize aqua. I like doing pink, aqua, and emerald green together for Venus. And I will invoke her. I can chant if I want to, but really just listening to Gustav's piece while I visualize those colors and allow it to fill up my body before I go perform a Venus-like act, before I do something that is very Venus-inspired. That's kind of been how I've been bringing in those elements. And Venus rules over love, beauty, relationships, the home and hearth, just so many things. But it's been really lovely to work with Venus as I'm driving through this beautiful country, building relationships with different people, hearing their stories, hearing how they take care of their own, and trying different foods and learning more about the culture overall. It just feels very Venus inspired for me. Anyways, highly recommend you research more about the Mayans because they're just so fascinating. Another thing I learned about the ancient Mayans and how they've kind of affected the current culture of the people that live here. There's so many things from the ancient Mayans, so many pieces of wisdom that have been woven into everyday tasks. So for example, we were talking to someone who mentioned palms, how they use a piece of the palm tree to build roofs. Not every roof on every house, but there are some houses that have like bits of palm in the roof. And if you harvest pieces from the palm tree around the full moon, either a couple days beforehand, during the full moon, or a couple days afterwards, it is said that the roof will last so much longer. It'll last 10, 20 years. But if you harvest from the palm tree and it's not around the full moon, then your roof is not going to last long at all. It lasts for a very short period of time. And this has been proven. These people building houses over time, harvesting the palm trees at different times, the ancient Mayans really worked with the moon in this sense. They did moon gardening, so they would harvest things at a certain time of the moon cycle. They would plant things at a certain time in the moon cycle. I personally utilize moon gardening at home as well. There are certain phases of the moon where I plant seeds, certain phases where I harvest, and you'll find that the growth of your plants and just how long something lasts after you've picked it is drastically different depending on which cycle of the moon phase it is. So look up moon gardening if you're not familiar with that. It's really cool. But that was something that the ancient Mayans did, and now locals do today because that wisdom was passed down over a long period of time. And I could go on and on. Again, I'm really trying not to make this a 20-minute conversation again, but I think I'm gonna do it. Let's move on to the experience I had in the cave because it was quite surreal. So the energy in the caves is very different than the temples. So as you saw in Tikal, the big city of ruins, these giant monumental temples, when we were walking up on top of these temples, you could feel the energy. And the energy above ground where these temples were, it was very light. It felt like there was a presence of divinity. You could feel this divine presence, this sacredness around all of the temples. And it was actually kind of a lovely feeling. I thought it was really wholesome, lighthearted, community-oriented. Surprisingly, I got really good vibes, despite, the bad reputation of the Mayans being really intense with their sacrifices and whatnot. I actually received really good energy visiting the temples. But when we went into the caves is where they did a lot of those sacrificial ceremonies. It was a completely different energy. When we entered the caves, the first thing I noticed is that I saw something crawling on the rocks above us, and it actually startled me. It freaked me out a little bit because I thought it was a human. First of all, I thought it was human, and I was worried that there was a human actually stuck on top of the rocks inside the cave. And then second of all, I was like, okay, maybe it's not human, maybe it's just a really large animal. And then that freaked me out even more because, what if it's like a jaguar or something? coming out to get us, you know? But then I realized it was a spiritual entity coming in and out that I was picking up on. And so I kind of relaxed a little bit because I was like, okay, no jaguar is gonna eat us. It's not a live human stuck up there. It's a spiritual entity. So I sensed this spiritual entity in the caves as we were going along in the canoe. And I don't know if it was one of the humans that was sacrificed in the cave. I don't know if it was perhaps a guardian spirit. I was talking to one of my channel members in our Discord server, and she had said that maybe it was a guardian spirit, you know, a guardian of the bones, making sure that everyone entering the cave is behaving respectfully, etc. So it could have been a guardian spirit. It wasn't malicious by any means. I didn't pick up any malicious energy from it, but you could definitely sense a presence going into there, and then actually seeing it move in the rocks above, just whew, my heart fluttered a little bit until I kind of realized what it was. And then as we moved deeper into the caves, the tour guide actually had us all turn off our headlamps, and we were in complete blackness, complete pitch black. You could not see anything. It was one of those things where you open your eyes really wide and you still can't see a single thing. And he had us all be quiet, and we just sat there and we just listened. And it was so eerie, especially because as we were coming up upon these human remains, we were seeing actual skulls. We were seeing actual artifacts left throughout this cave from all of these big, long, elaborate ceremonies. The energy was so intense in there. It was kind of one of those moments where the silence is deafening, and I thought that I might go a little crazy. If I had to sit there in the dark, in silence, in that cave for too long, I would have gone a little mad. But something really interesting that the tour guide told us when we were going into these caves is that evidence suggests, and I say evidence suggests because everything that we know about the Mayans could be wrong. We're never going to 100% know what the Mayans did or what they believed. We can go off the data that we have found, you know, from archaeological finds and other anthropologists doing research, you know, but we're never going to 100% know. So this is speculation off the data that we've been given. But it appears that the victims, again, I say victims because a lot of people, it seems like a lot of people volunteered to be sacrifices because it was an honor. It was just such a deep honor in the society of the ancient Mayans, and you could bypass the 9 levels of hell by sacrificing yourself. So anyways, these sacrifices or victims, they would be drugged up and they would be brought inside these caves to see their gods. And I can understand why they would feel like they're seeing their gods as they enter these caves, because the rock formations look like faces, and it wasn't purposefully, you know, adapted or modified or drawn on or anything. These rocks just seem to form in the shape of faces. And so you're going through this really dark cave and you're seeing these faces on the rocks everywhere. Imagine you're tripping because you've been super drugged up. You're brought into these caves with these weird looking rocks, and you think that you see your gods, or maybe you do actually see the gods in that way. And then you go through this long sacrificial ceremony. The energy was so intense. And afterwards, when I tried to film this the first time, I was so emotional that I wasn't able to even get out my thoughts properly. And so now that we're days into the future, I think this is a much better recording of what I'm trying to actually say here, because yeah, it was just really intense for me. So anyways, our next stop is Xuanantunich, which is another Mayan city. So the last thing I wanted to say here before I show you the next little bit of footage, just to catch you up to speed from the last couple days, every Mayan city or civilization was a little bit different. It wasn't like the Aztecs. The Aztecs, all their different locations were kind of tied together, and then they had like a main hub. And no, with the Mayan civilization, every city had their own thing going on. So Tikal, that you saw earlier in this video, was its own city doing its own thing. And Xuanantunich, which we visited after the canoes and the caves, was another city. It wasn't quite as big. You know what? I'll actually put some footage up on the screen right now because it was really difficult to get to Xuanantunich. We had to ride horseback, and don't worry, the horses are very well taken care of. I love horses so much. I went to horse camp like every other summer when I was a teenager, so I really love horses. But we got to ride horses. We had to cross a ferry, so we had to pull the horses up onto a ferry and then cross this little river to get to the other side, and then we rode the horses up this hill and into Xuanantunich. And so this city, like I mentioned previously, though it's a lot smaller than Tikal, it's very, very small in comparison, it ended up becoming an epic trading center. And Xuanantunich was building alliances with other cities, and people would come in and trade here. And so, yeah, it was just kind of a trading hub. They had a relationship with Tikal, they had a relationship with other Mayan cities around them. And we actually came upon this tomb, which was really interesting because it was for a female, and not a lot of Mayan civilizations actually had female leaders. But Xuanantunich did, at one point at least, and she had this beautiful decorated tomb because she was a warrior, she was a conqueror. It was so cool and inspiring to learn about a badass female warrior conqueror and how she ended up having this beautifully decorated tomb in Xuanantunich. So anyways, we walked around, rode the horses back, and then I'll play the footage from the botanical gardens where I got to connect to some plant spirits because it was really, really cool connecting to some of the spirits in the forest. So I'll show you that next. Finally found our way to the Belize Botanical Gardens. So while my partner meanders around, I think I'm gonna try to connect to some plant spirits while I'm here and see what it feels like. Come here! Hello, little friend. Hello, friend. He just saw a lizard, tried to eat him. So this botanical garden is 45 acres. Highly doubt we're gonna be able to do the whole thing today. There are so many different kinds of tree spirits here. We just saw a lychee tree, here's a jackfruit. What the heck is a star apple? I've never seen a star apple in my life. Okay, you'll have to excuse how I look right now because I am drenched in sweat. It is so hot. Anyways, I wanted to say that back at our other hotel, I had a chance to really connect with the neem tree, and I felt like the neem tree in particular just really felt so good to me. But the mango tree was also really lovely energy. I'm trying to take a moment while my partner walks around a little loop. I'm trying to take a moment to just kind of sit here. I'm glad we stopped here. This was not on our itinerary, but I'm so glad we decided to canoe over here. So yeah, gonna take a couple more minutes to meditate, and then we'll be on our way to the next place. There's one bird here that sounds kind of like a firecracker, like a firework going off. Let's see, listen. You hear that? There it goes again. It's like, pew! It sounds like a firework. I don't know where it's coming from, but it's cute. I just finished up my meditation, and the lighting is gonna be kind of weird right now, but I received this. I don't know how to explain this, so maybe somebody else out there that lives in a tropical climate or a jungle climate, maybe you can explain this, but I live in really cold forests. Like I live in the upper Pacific Northwest where we have a lot of greenery. It is definitely a lot of forests, but it's always very cold. It's rainy, it's crisp. There is a certain springtime energy to it, if that makes sense. It always feels light and vibrant, like a really bright green. But I've also visited the desert, and the desert feels so tough and hardy and almost aggressive. Like when I was visiting Arizona, and I've been in a couple other, desert-ish places too, the desert of California, and every time I visit those places, especially where there's a lot of cacti, it just feels so strong, totally enduring. But in the jungle, the energy that I'm getting is very different between the two. It feels like a low vibration. That's the only way I can explain it. The energy feels very like a low humming vibration. I wouldn't say it's necessarily strong and aggressive like the desert, and I wouldn't say it's like this fresh springtime energy what I feel in the Pacific Northwest in comparison to the other climates. It's this low, primal, guttural, like I feel it in my solar plexus, my sacral, and my root. I feel a lot in my root, and I typically do feel a lot of energy in my root chakra when I'm meditating in any kind of forest, in any climate, but this one just feels different. It's like the sound of a low pounding drum. Does that make sense? Anybody else that lives in a tropical climate, please tell me if you feel the same way, if you've been to other climates in comparison, because I find that I could probably say this about my own, you know, Pacific Northwest experiences as well, but until you get out and experience different terrains, you're really able to better compare them or contrast them, you know? So somebody who lives in a tropical climate that has been to other climates and kind of experienced the differences, definitely tell me your thoughts on this. It's so difficult for me to explain jungle rainforest energy. But anyways, I just wanted to share my meditation with you all. We just arrived to a little peninsula, and at the bottom of the peninsula, it's called Placencia. But I wanted to show you the next place we're staying at, because this is by far the nicest place we have yet. This place is insane. We actually have a full kitchen. We're staying at Umaya Resorts and Adventures or something like that. Full dining room, full living room. Looks like I haven't even explored yet. There's a bedroom back this way, little bathroom. What's over here? I haven't even looked at the view yet either. Oh, this is our bedroom. Oh, I see. I wonder what's outside the window. I bet it's so pretty. Are you kidding me? Oh, that is such a gorgeous view. Looks like we have a bathroom on the other side as well. Yes. Okay, let's check the view out the sliding door. Oh, we got our welcome drinks. Woo, cheers. The wind is probably hitting the microphone a little bit too much right now, but wow. We have arrived. This is beautiful. Okay, I got wild and crazy hair right now because we just drove for almost 3 hours, but it was so interesting starting our trip in San Ignacio because, like I mentioned earlier, it's not a place typically where a lot of tourists go. A lot of tourists go to the Key, they go to San Pedro, they even come here to Placencia. Like, these are really nice touristy places, and you can tell there is money here. There's a lot of money here. But if you go all the way over northeast to San Ignacio, like where we went, it's a lot more of a local cultural experience, and it's weird to see the difference between these two areas of Belize, because San Ignacio is not as much money as it is here. There's a couple really nice resorts in the jungle, don't get me wrong, and there's a couple nice places, but you can really see how Belize is a developing country when you get out of these touristy areas like Placencia or San Pedro or whatever. If you only spend time in these super touristy places, I feel like you're missing out so much on the bigger picture of Belize. Yeah, it was a culture shock going to San Ignacio, and it was a lot different than it is here. Now you are fully caught up to speed. We are in our newest place here that you just saw a tour of. We have lots of adventures planned for the rest of this week. I think now we're shifting away from Mayan ruins, and we are shifting more into just enjoying the rest of our honeymoon. We're just gonna try to enjoy food, culture, snorkeling, a couple other tours, fun stuff like that. What a sweet baby.
Look at his owie back. He's got barnacles.
That's my pet, man.
We finally made it back to Belize City. You can hear the birds going crazy. I have to show you this cute little cabana. Look at this cute little cabana. We're only staying here for 2 nights because it's way closer to the airport. So we're just gonna stay here for 2 nights, but it's so cute inside. Look. Just a very simple, very cute little room. I think this is actually a yoga retreat too, so they offer like yoga certifications and stuff. So you can come here and actually do yoga, go for a swim, get your cert, all that. And they have a little hammock out front too. Ah! We're heading out to dinner now, and listen to these birds. This is insane. Wow. I am back home. I just got home late last night. Yesterday was an insane travel day, just like so many issues. Mercury was just coming out of retrograde and we were still in that shadow period, so I had anticipated it was going to be a shit show. It was a shit show. Also, I just got my hair cut today and I got 6 inches chopped off of my hair. This is a total tangent, but I'm really trying to work with the natural texture of my hair. Like this is the natural texture and these are the natural curls. And so by cutting it, it just made it so much more curly, which makes me super happy. Anyways, I'm trying to embrace the curls because I spent my entire life hating my curls and straightening my hair. So the curls are curling today. I want to take a couple moments to talk to you about the souvenirs I got, what I'm going to be using them for, and just about the trip overall. I could really spend so much time here just kind of talking about all the culture shocks, because there were some massive culture shocks from Central America compared to the United States. I learned so much about their healthcare system, their religion, their politics, current culture, right alongside indigenous cultures. The second half of the trip, I really didn't film that much. As you saw, I really only got a couple clips here and there, but we talked to so many people across the country. And I was trying my hardest not to make this video too long. I know some of y'all in the comments say, no, I love longer videos, please do longer videos, but the vast majority of people that watch my videos on YouTube do not enjoy long videos. So that's why I'm just gonna have to leave out so much from this trip, but I did learn a lot. Let's talk about some things that I brought back. So the very first thing, I'm actually gonna show a B-roll clip of it. It's a painting of 2 toucans. So I kind of mentioned that I was like, oh, I might get a toucan tattoo at the end of this trip. I did not end up getting a toucan tattoo. Instead, we ended up, really the reason why we didn't get tattoos is because the tattoo shop was totally booked out. So couldn't get tattoos, but we bought this beautiful painting from a local artist. This is officially the most expensive painting I have ever owned in my entire life. It's huge. So that's why I'm showing you the B-roll clip of this, because it is so big. I can't really hold it up in front of the camera for you, but we're gonna end up hanging it up. We have this like staircase with this big giant opening, and so we're gonna hang it at the very top of the staircase so you see the toucans when you come up and come down. And we just thought that that would be a wonderful way to reminisce about our honeymoon in Belize and Guatemala. And I really liked the toucan for its spirit flight symbolism. It's also the bird of Belize too. So we ended up getting that. I also got a mask in Guatemala. So this mask in particular represents the highlands. We were in the lowlands, but I thought this mask was really beautiful, but I ended up picking it more for the aesthetic more than anything. But this is a highlands mask. And then for those that watched my Greece vlog, you probably know that my partner and I, we have a mural. We're creating a mural that has a bunch of stuff all over it for like everywhere we travel, we try to get at least one thing to hang on the mural. So to represent Belize, we got this coconut shell, and this coconut shell is of a particular goddess that relates to the moon. So I thought that was really cool. Here's just the inside, but it's pretty big too. And I think this will go beautifully on the mural. These two side by side are just going to be so lovely. And then I think I briefly showed you, so this is a conch shell, and I thought that First of all, it being a seashell of some sort is perfect for Venus energy. And I'm starting a new project for myself. I really want to start collecting things here and there that have significant value to me that relate to the planets. And I want to ultimately build a shrine or an altar that has bits and bobs to represent each planet. So like this will be my talisman for Venus. And then it doesn't have to be a necklace every time, but I thought the fact that it's a necklace, okay, Venus, the fact that it's a seashell, and the fact that it's this beautiful pink color, it just screamed Venus, and it's going to remind me of all the work I did with Venus over the course of this trip. So this is going to be on my Venus portion of my Planetary Magic altar, which I'm currently working on. I don't have enough correspondences, but it's something that I really want to do slowly over a really long period of time because I want to, you know, really gather the right pieces from the right places. I don't want to just go to a store and buy a bunch of random stuff that I think could fit every single one of the planets. I want it to be meaningful. We ran into this woman and she is Mayan. She is an ancient Mayan descendant. There's actually a lot of Mayans and they sell their jewelry. They sell a couple different things, so we bought some stuff from her, but there's actually a lot of vendors in Placencia that sell necklaces like this, but she was just so sweet and we talked to her for a while, so I really wanted to support her on the bracelets right now because why not? And then we got this little, it's supposed to be for garlic. It's a little garlic jar. I'm gonna use it for flaky salt because I use flaky salt a lot when I cook, so I'm gonna put flaky salt in here and then set it on my kitchen counter. Let me just put my pink Venus necklace on because, you know, pink and blue go really well together. Cute, cute. Love it. So yeah, that's basically everything that I brought back from my trip. Oh, I didn't end up getting sick. I actually got really sick. That was another reason why I didn't film the second half of the trip, is because we had to cancel a bunch of stuff. I ended up, I don't know if it was a sinus infection, I don't know what it was, but I ended up getting sick and I just had to stay in the hotel room for an extended period of time and practice social distancing, which was nice because we were basically done with the adventure portion of our trip anyways, and we really just had more like beach time relaxation. So it's really easy to practice social distancing when you're on a beach far away from other people, you know? So at least that was good, but man, I got so sick. And part of the culture shock was that there is no cold medicine available. I got cough drops, but there was nothing for cold medicine. And the grocery stores are really interesting. The roads are really interesting. The police force is really interesting. There's just so much. There's so much. If you want me to do a video about culture shocks and what it was like, definitely let me know. I don't think anybody's going to be interested in that, but I learned a lot. I got a whole new perspective when I came back to the United States, and I'm not gonna lie, I cried a little bit when I got home because I missed home so much. 15 days in the jungles and going everywhere else. I missed home. I missed being here. So anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I'm probably gonna take a little rest after coming home and may not upload another video for at least a week, but I appreciate you being here with me and I'll see you in another one soon.